First of all, I'd like to welcome everyone to today's Wednesday webinar on interactions and how to foster them and more. My name is Sasha Johnson, and joining me today are Paul Lynch, Brian Randall, Kim Tompkinson, and Mark Cooper. Today, we're going to be looking at how you can incorporate interactions within your course to create more engagement for your students. First, Paul will talk about student-to-student interactions, and then Mark will discuss student-to-instructor interactions, and Ryan will follow up with student content interactions. This session is one of 3 related webinars on interactions, which can help you find ways to reinvigorate engagement in your course. And with that, I will pass it off to Paul.
Great. Thank you, Sasha. So first, why interactions? This comes from Specific Review Standard 5.2 of the Quality Matters rubric, which states, learning activities provide opportunities for interaction that support active learning. These type of interactions include, as Sasha just stated, student-to-student, student-to-instructor, and student-to-content. These interactions must encourage active learning. This does not review the quantity of interactions, but rather the quality of interactions that you have in a course. So, student-to-student interaction, what is it? The nice thing is it is exactly what it sounds like, ways to get students to meaningfully interact with each other. So for example, let's say you have an activity where a student is required to make an initial post in a discussion, and then they need to respond to 2 of their peers' posts. So that would be an example of a student-to-student interaction. So why do we want to have these student-to-student interactions? Well, it's an opportunity for them to develop connections and social presence with their cohort. They also have chances to present to, review, or work with their peers. And I think one of the most important parts is students who feel supported in their courses are more likely to achieve those course outcomes. So next, how can we incorporate student-to-student interaction in our courses? First, looking at forums. If you're using just written responses in your forums, it may be worth it to consider allowing audio and video responses in conjunction to written responses. The benefit of including audio and video responses is there are certain nuances to those different types of media, nonverbal cues, verbal cues that just are difficult or non-existent with written responses. So it provides that little bit of extra information to the students when they're viewing those responses. And because you're getting some kind of vocal or visual interaction with colleagues, this can help develop that sense of community and that social connection with each other. And then by providing multiple means of responses, you're actually reinforcing a core concept of universal design for learning, or UDL for short. Next, you could incorporate group assignments. So by using group assignments, you're creating an opportunity for interaction between students, but not for the sake of interaction, but for the overall completion of an assignment. Examples of group assignments you could incorporate are group papers, audio and or visual presentations, reports, or case studies. Then you have peer review or peer assessments. Peer review can be a way to include the student voice in the learning process. Students will draw upon their own strengths to provide feedback to their peers by using different writing styles. In the process of providing feedback, they may be challenged on their own views or understanding of the course content. Next, I'll pass things off to Mark, who will discuss the different types of student-to-instructor interactions.
Thank you, Paul. All right, student-to-instruction interactions. And what is it? It is how students and instructors connect at numerous and timely points throughout the course. So when we're talking about numerous, we're talking about frequent or regular communication with your students throughout the course. And with timely, we're talking about right away, not waiting until the end of the semester to engage your disengaged students. Student-to-instructor interaction is a two-way communication between the instructor and the students. And it involves active learning. So the instructor is guiding students to increasing responsibility for their own learning. So why is this important? First of all, it creates a thriving learning environment for the instructor and the students, where the students want to learn and be successful. It improves the student confidence and self-worth. And we can all think of a teacher or a professor in our lives who, inspired us, gave us confidence and self-worth, and that's the reason why we are here where we are. Student to instructor interaction decreases student isolation. So in an online course, there's a longer transactional distance between the student and the instructor, and it becomes easy for students to feel isolated, which decreases their engagement and lowers the student's confidence and self-worth. So student to instructor interaction increases students' persistence in completing the course. And persistence is the student's ability to stay engaged in the course and not drop off. Student to instructor engagement is critical to student success. So how do you incorporate student to instructor interaction in your course? You can do that by providing feedback to your students on an assignment. You do that by the instructor engaging the students by facilitating a discussion in a forum. You can also create an academic exchange where the students pose the questions to you, the instructor, and then you provide the instructor interaction by responding to those questions. If you would like to learn more about some of the tools to help you engage your students in your online course, you can contact a Quality Plus instructional designer to learn more. And now I'm going to turn it over to Ryan, who's going to talk about student to content interaction.
Great, thanks, Mark. So student to content interaction, it's engagement with course materials that promotes active learning and designed to support the course objectives. So as a few of us have already mentioned, you want to make sure that you're helping students engage as well as really thoughtfully. You've designed it with a purpose in mind. So why would you want to really focus the student's attention on the content? It might sound like a sort of silly question, but what it does is it helps students build their knowledge. It helps students to build their skills. And perhaps less obviously, it also helps students build their ability to learn independently, so that after your course is done, they have learned how they learn best, and then they can hopefully transfer that to future courses or future scenarios beyond your course. So what are some ways that you can actually create this sort of student content interaction within your class? Some of them are, of course, you can assign a reading from textbook, an article, some other resource like a video. When you do this, Moodle's book resource is a really handy way to put these sort of resources together. It makes it very nicely laid out on the screen for students to see. What you could also do is assign completion of an exercise or some sort of workbook in Moodle. This could be a lesson, which is very similar to books, but a bit more interactive. And you can also use H5P activities to sort of create check your understanding type quizzes. They're not necessarily ones that you'd want to connect to the grade book, but ones that are just sort of there to help a student gauge whether or not they're understanding the content well without needing feedback from you, the instructor. Other things you could do, a thing that I really enjoy is having a reflection or sort of metacognition activity. So as I was saying about students being able to transfer how they learn to future scenarios, this really helps support that. So you might assign things like a minute paper. So have a student just write very low stakes sort of response to themselves about something that they have just read. You also could assign very similarly prompts like, what was least clear about the reading, or what would I research next, sort of questions to help students think about what they've just encountered in the content and sort of synthesize it and then think about it beyond what they've just read. Other things you could do would be provide work examples of problems or other aspects of the course content. And finally, you could provide exemplary versions of previous students' work so they can see very model example of what someone has done. So these are different ways that students can become more familiar with the content of your course. As Mark had said, if you have questions about how to design any of these into your course, we'd be more than happy to work with you to design them in your course. So if you have any questions, Kim is here and she would be glad to help facilitate question and answer now.
Thanks, Ryan. So we would love to hear what your questions are about interactions and answer those the best that we can. So does anyone have any questions for us? We'll wait the awkward 5 seconds and turn it over to Sasha to tell us how to learn more.
Great, thank you, Kim. If you would like to learn more, we do have a variety of resources available. You can scan the QR code on this slide, and I'm going to post a link in the chat to a slide with active links that you can select to get to these resources. So the Tiger Tracks Knowledge Base is a library of how-to articles at your fingertips. They're available 24/7. We also have a library of short walkthrough videos on various topics in our ITRC video library that you can find on our YouTube channel. And you're always welcome to meet with us at the ITRC. You can email us at itrc@isu.edu. You can give us a call. Our extension is 5880. And our front lab in the Oboler Library Room B17 is also available during business hours if you want to drop in. And as I mentioned previously, this session is one of 3 related sessions on student engagement. So watch for the upcoming How Can I Engage Students During a Synchronous Online Class, and where are you in your online course creating that online presence? We have those webinars coming up this month on the 15th and the 22nd. So save those dates and you can watch the ISU Today announcements and the ISU events calendar for other webinars that we'll be holding. And one more link I will post in the chat is to the registration slide so that you can register for upcoming webinars. And we want to thank you for joining us today and hope you have a wonderful day.